Chapter 6, The Flow of Food. Let's look at the specific examples of purchasing and receiving. General purchase and receiving principles include purchase food from approved reputable suppliers. These suppliers have been inspected and can show you an inspection report. They also meet all applicable local, state, and federal laws. These apply to all suppliers in your supply chain. Your operations chain can include growers, shippers, packers, manufacturers, distributors, trucking fleets, and warehouses. Local markets, for that matter. Develop a relationship with your suppliers and get to know their food safety practices. Consider reviewing their most recent inspection reports. These reports can be from the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, or a third-party inspector. They should be based on good manufacturing practices or good agricultural practices, or now new regulations include the Food Safety Modernization Act, preventative controls, and produce safety rules. Ensure the deliveries are arranged when your staff has enough time to do the inspection and correctly receive foods. So some things to consider at receiving. Make specific staff responsible for receiving criteria. Train them to look for correct temperatures, expiration dates, signs of thawing and refreezing or time temperature abuse, pest damage. Allow them to accept, reject, and sign for deliveries. And plan ahead for deliveries. Provide staff with the appropriate tools they need, such as thermometers and scales. Make sure you have enough trained staff available to receive and inspect foods promptly prior to storing them. Make sure you have clean hand trucks, dollies, carts, and containers ready. Also, make sure there's enough space in dry storage and walk-in areas for shipments. During receiving, make sure you take a look at the truck for signs of contamination. Ask for temperature control parameters during transportation. Check for damaged food. Sample temperatures. Inspect and store each delivery prior to receiving another. Some food service operations receive food after hours when they are closed for business. This is often referred to as a key drop delivery. The supplier is given a key or other access to the operation to make the delivery. Products are then placed in coolers and freezers and dry storage areas. The delivery must be inspected once you arrive at the operation and make sure that they have met the appropriate criteria. Deliveries must be placed in the correct storage area and must be honestly presented. Occasionally, you may be able to recondition or use items that would have been possibly rejected. For example, a shipment of cans with contaminated surface may be cleaned and sanitized, allowing them to be used. However, the same cans may not be reconditioned if contamination was a result of a damage to the can itself. So have, standards for rejecting deliveries and separate rejected items from acceptable ones, and tell the delivery person what is wrong, get signed adjustment or credit slips before giving the rejected item to the delivery person, and be sure to log these incidents on the invoice or receiving documentation. Food items you have received may sometimes be recalled by the manufacturer. This may happen when food contamination is confirmed or suspected. It can also occur when items have been mislabeled or misbranded. Often food is recalled when food allergens have not been identified on the label. Most vendors will notify you of the recall. However, you should also monitor recall notifications made by the FDA and USDA. Follow the guidelines in the slide when notified of a recall. Identify the recalled food item by matching the information from the recall notice. Remove the item from inventory and place it in a secure and appropriate location. The recalled item must be stored separately from food, utensils, and equipment and linens and single-use items. Label the item in a way to prevent its use. Inform staff do not use this product. Refer to the vendor's notification or recall notice for what to do with the item. Monitoring temperature, again, is one of the main factors in the flow of food. At receiving, we must have parameters for monitoring temperature of meat, poultry, and fish. So insert the thermometer stem or probe into the thickest part, usually the center. Checking the temperature of reduced oxygen packaged foods. We're going to insert the thermometer stem between two packages, or we can perhaps fold the package around the thermometer stem or probe. Be careful not to puncture the package. ROP stands for reduced oxygen packaging. This includes matte packing, vacuum packaged foods, and sous vide foods. Some products will just go ahead and open the product, fully immerse the sensing area in the item, being sure not to touch the sides or bottom of the package, and get a temperature reading. Okay, let's look at the appropriate receiving temperature requirements for foods. Cold foods, TCS foods, are 41 degrees Fahrenheit or lower unless otherwise specified. Hot foods, hot TCS foods, 135 or higher. Frozen foods are required to be frozen solid, no signs of temperature abuse, ice crystals, thawing, water, stains, things of that nature. Live shellfish can come in at an air temperature of 45 Fahrenheit or an internal temperature of not greater than 50 degrees Fahrenheit. We are required to cool these items to 41 degrees or lower within 4 hours. Shucked shellfish, 45 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Again, we have a requirement to cool these items to 41 or lower within 4 hours. Milk can come in at 45 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Must be cooled to an internal temperature of 41 degrees Fahrenheit or lower in 4 hours. And shelled eggs can come in at a 45 degree Fahrenheit air temperature. Temperature control is probably the main parameter we're looking at, but many foods will not require temperature control. So for these type of foods, we're going to look for tears or holes or punctures in packaging. We're going to reject cans that are swollen or have rust or dents. We're going to look for bloating or leaking ROP packaging, which is reduced oxygen packaged foods. We're going to look for broken cartons or seals and dirty or discolored packaging, leaks and dampness or water stains, signs of pest or pest damage. Definitely looking at expirations and expiration dates and any evidence of tampering. So there's going to be some required documents for a couple things that you're going to need to make sure you keep on file if you're serving, handling, or preparing these type of foods. Shellfish must be received with shell stock identification tags. Now these are going to be your molluscan shellfish, your clams, your oysters, your mussels. These tags indicate when and where the shellfish was harvested, and they must be kept on file for 90 days after the last shellfish is served, sold, or thrown out from its delivery container. So there are additional documentation that you'd want to have for certain fish and fishery products, like fish that's going to be eaten raw or partially cooked. We want to have documentation showing that the primary processor or a processor has correctly frozen this fish, and we want to keep those documents on file for 90 days. And then we want to also, if we're serving farm-raised fish, have documentation stating that the fish were raised to FDA standards and keep those documents on file for 90 days as well. So it's very important that we buy our food products from approved, reputable suppliers. So you're going to need to know who regulates what and who inspects what type of commodities. Meat and poultry and eggs are regulated by the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture. All other foods are primarily inspected and regulated by the FDA, for the most part. Meat, poultry, and eggs are USDA, and all other foods are FDA. So what we're looking for is that these folks are running business the way they should. They're operating up to these standards. And then make sure that you are ensuring that there's inspection stamps on these products. Definitely, we're going to be looking at temperature and packaging stuff, but we can also use sensory parameters to determine if a food meets a quality or safety objective. And looking at the appearance, texture, and odor would be viable ways to do that. Poor food quality can be a sign that the food has been time temperature abused and therefore may be unsafe. So make sure you always have standards where you're looking for moldy or abnormal colored foods, slimy, sticky foods, or those that may have an unpleasant odor. We would want to reject those foods.